the Apprenticeship Levy for Accounts Payable and Professional Development. On the line, we've got myself, Sam Hitchen-Rae from ACAPP, and Simon Ashworth from AELP. And I'm just going to ask Simon now to give us a few details on AELP and what Simon actually does at AELP. So over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So good morning, everyone. So AELP, ALP, Association of Employment Learning Providers, we're a national membership body. We've got around 950 members. Our members collectively deliver two in every 3 apprenticeships delivered here in England. So ALP originally was set up as a trade body for privately owned independent training providers. Our membership's quite diversified now through the apprenticeship reform. So we've got a number of FE colleges, universities offering degree apprenticeships, endpoint assessment organisations who offer endpoint assessment in membership, along with a number of employers. So that's kind of who we are. Our main role really is sort of lobby and influence government around further education policy. But as a membership body, we also have a number of other sort of facets where we support our members with in terms of resources, events, conferences. But like I say, there are other membership bodies out there. People might have heard of the Association of Colleges, who represent the 150 or 60 FE colleges specifically. But we're an agnostic membership body that mainly specialises in apprenticeships here in England. And sorry, yeah, just a bit about myself. So I'm Chief Policy Officer, so work closely with government on existing policy, new policy changes, and then kind of prior to working at ALP, I sort of worked in the sector for around 15 years. So I worked for quite a large national training provider, just on the lead up to the apprenticeship reforms and the levy in 2017. So kind of working with employers, developing some of the new trailblazer standards, which aren't as new anymore. So certainly seen it from both sides of the fence, from the delivery side, working with employers, but now from a sort of national policy perspective and the breadth of how the program's delivered, what the challenges are, kind of the end-to-end process.
Brilliant. And so Simon, that really puts you in a good position to really tell us all about the apprenticeship levy, what it means, and what it means for businesses and how it can be utilised really. So we're glad that you can join us today. So just sort of moving on then, in terms of what we do, ACAPP, we are an awarding organisation. We structured similar to a lot of the other awarding organisations like AAT, ACCA, etc., where we offer a variety of sort of membership options. We conduct research into the industry for accounts payable and procure to pay, as we run quarterly surveys on different things like how processes are changing, salary surveys, etc., things that really matter and show a lot of insight to people in accounts payable. We also offer the highest level of education in the UK for accounts payable through apprenticeships and through distance learning as well. The apprenticeships that we offer range from a level 2 through to a level 5, and we'll cover that in a bit more detail a bit later on. And then finally, we also have industry conferences and events, which are in some ways linked to some of the courses that we do. So we have guest speakers that talk about topics that are covered in our courses, and then other guest speakers who talk about things that are relevant in the industry and different changes, etc. So always worthwhile coming to understand what changes are going on in the industry. So that's a summary of what we do as an organisation. Obviously, you can find a lot more information on us online on our website. In terms of my role, I'm the Partnerships Director at ACAPP, and that encompasses all different types of partnerships, from partnerships that we have with educational providers, so Black Country Training Group and Further Training are our training delivery partners who deliver all of the apprenticeships that we offer. We have partnerships with commercial organisations who offer solutions which are relevant for accounts payable and procure to pay and wider finance. And then we also, the relationships that we have with employers who roll out our apprenticeship options, we also classify them as partners as well. So anyone that's looking at the apprenticeships at the moment, you know, we'd be looking at partnering with you rather than, you know, you just becoming a customer of ours. So moving on from what we do to, you know, what we're actually going to discuss today and what we're going to talk about. There are 4 key questions that I think that we need to answer and that come up time and time again when we're speaking with different employers. Starting with, you know, does my company pay into the levy? Then how is the levy accessed and who controls the levy within the business? You know, a lot of people have heard of the levy, but who actually, you know, controls that element? Then we're looking at what training and qualifications are actually available for accounts payable and procure to pay specifically. And then what are the next steps if you do want to go down that route of enrolling in one of the courses, or if you want to offer it to your team, or, you know, if you're coming from a HR perspective and you want to offer it to a department. We'll talk about that as well. So I'll pass this question across to you, Simon. A question that a lot of companies or individuals ask us, you know, does my employer pay into the apprenticeship levy? Can you tell us a bit about what the levy is to start off with, to put it into context, and then, you know, a bit about who actually pays into the apprenticeship levy and what that means?
Yeah, sure, Sam. I think so. The apprenticeship levy's been around since April 2017, so we're fast approaching 3 years since the levy was introduced. I mean, the levy was introduced as a response to the Doug Richard review of 2012, which basically recommended that employers needed to contribute more towards the training and upskilling of their staff, and government alone shouldn't sort of shoulder responsibility. So the levy was a number of years in the making. It was introduced in April 2017. Obviously, levy is a sort of polite term for a tax. One of the misconceptions around the levy is the number of employers that pay the levy. So actually only 2% of employers in England pay the levy. So in essence, that's about 22,000 employers currently pay the levy, and they range from the largest, so somebody like the NHS with a levy bill of around 200 million per year, through to an extremely long tail of organisations that are just drop into scope in the levy, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the levy itself at the moment, the apprenticeship levy, can only be, as it says on the slide, can only be used to fund exclusively the apprenticeship training. So it can't be used to fund wages or anything else. It has to be linked to one of around 500 apprenticeship standards, or about 100 apprenticeship frameworks, which are being decommissioned for new starts from August. So it has to be spent on one of those 2 products. In terms of who pays the levy, so as I mentioned, there's about 22,000 employers that pay the levy. The levy generates about 2.5 billion per annum, and in essence, it's a tax on employers with an annual pay bill of more than £3 million per year. So it's actually collected on a monthly basis. So it works on the basis that anything over £250,000 a month, you're paying 0.5%. So it's not a fixed rate. Obviously, with some employers, their payroll goes up and down. Might be to do with sort of seasonal demand. You might be paying bonuses, so that kind of increases levy payments between different months. So it's not a sort of kind of static rate. Technically, all employers are in scope for the levy, but the government's given all employers a virtual allowance, which means that they don't pay anything on the first 3 million. So if you're an employer with less than 3 million payroll, you don't pay the levy. And if you're a business that has a pay bill of more than 3 million, it's 0.5% of in excess of 3 million. For apprentices who can undertake an apprenticeship, they don't have to live in England, which is quite a big change, which came about 3 years ago. But the critical sort of test is that they must plan to spend at least 50% of their time in England. And I think so a good example I always give is that, say for example, an employer might be based somewhere like on the border, so somewhere like Chepstow in England, but some of their staff might live in Wales, but actually if they're spending more than or plan to spend more than 50% of their time in England, they can actually be funded through the Apprenticeship Levy to do an apprenticeship. As I kind of mentioned, how much do companies pay? It's 0.5% of their monthly payroll bill, which is above the £250,000 a month. And how the levy works is that the government then tops up a further 10%. So without going into too much around the technicalities, in essence, what happens is organisations pay into the levy each month. So the HMRC collect that. It's a tax. They then do a calculation based on your employees' postcodes. So the number of employees that work in the devolved nations, they then kind of pro rata it. But if all your employees live in England and you pay, say, £1 million into the levy, the government tops up by 10%. So you've got 1.1 million to spend. So you've actually got more to spend than you actually put in. But if, say, for example, you've got 50% of your staff live in Wales and you pay £1 million in, you get £500,000 levy, and then it's topped up by 10%, so you get 550,000. So there are some winners and losers in that, but there's a 10% top up depending on who's in scope. And then just the kind of final point there. So there are 98% of employers that don't pay the levy. And there's a co-investment model. So basically, in most cases, the employer pays 5% of the training and the government pays 95%. There's some exemptions for that. So if you're a micro business with less than 50 employees and you're taking on 16 to 18 apprentices, they're fully funded. But the co-investment model is quite important to understand, because if you're a levy paying employer that exceeds your levy, and obviously if you're kind of only on the cusp of the levy, you could spend your levy quite quickly. You then flip into the co-investment model. So once you've spent the levy, then you go into this sort of co-investment model where the government funds 95% and you have to pay yourself 5% of the training cost. I think just finally on the levy, the funds that work on a sort of sunsetted basis, so it's sort of first in, first out. So money that's kind of taken sits in your account for 24 months before it starts to be clawed back. So as I said, the levy's been going for 3 years now. So the whole system works on the basis that some money will go unspent, which helps fund the government's 95% co-investment to smaller employers as well. So hopefully that's kind of giving you a bit of context to who pays the levy, what it can be spent on, and how it kind of works quite a holistic level.
So just to kind of summarise what you said then, Simon, in broad brush terms, I suppose, there's approximately 2% of businesses in the UK that have an annual payroll of £3 million or more, and they pay into the levy. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's right. And then those who don't pay into the levy, the other 98%, they can effectively get access to what's called the co-investment fund, where, say, for instance, if a course is, funded at £7,000, that company would have to pay 5% of that cost, and then the rest of it is funded through the co-investment from the government. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, so the 95% is subsidised by the government, unless there are very specific cases, like I say, where if it's for 16 to 18 apprentices in small employers, the government pays 100%. But for everyone else, pretty much the model is a 5% charge for employers, and the government has a sort of generous 95% top up on the training subsidy that is required.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing for us. When we're speaking with employers, there are a lot who are holding back on enrolling too many people in apprenticeships because they're concerned that they're going to run out of money in their levy fund. But actually, what sits behind that is, if you do run out of funds, then this co-investment fund is there for the levy payers as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And there's lots of employers of all shapes and sizes who've exceeded their levy because they think that even regardless, a 95% government subsidy on the training still represents a really good deal, and it's obviously different in different sectors and occupations. But yeah, the spending the levy it shouldn't be a barrier. Some see that as just a process to keep continuing getting the training that they want, just funded slightly differently.
Brilliant. Okay, so I think that's a good roundup of, does your employer pay into the levy? Next, how can people access the levy? Because it's all well and good the levy being there, but in real terms, how do people actually get access to it, and how is it used?
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognise, like I said, there's at the moment there's about 22,000 employers who pay the levy. And I think that the last statistics I saw from the government was that I think over 20,000 accounts have been set up on the Apprenticeship Service. So the Apprenticeship Service is which was, as it says on the slide, was formerly known as DAS or the Digital Apprenticeship Service, and kind of known as the service moving forward. It is the online platform for levy-paying employers to access and control their levy pot, who they work with, and how they fund that. So it's an online system that was introduced in back in April 2017. So, like I say, the majority of levy-paying employers have at least set up an account. Not saying that they've necessarily bought anything. But to set up an account, you need kind of HR. You tend to need more finance-related information. So, for example, to set up your digital account, you need things like your government gateway ID, your PAYE reference number. So, if it has been set up, the likelihood is it's probably been set up by somebody in the finance team. And some organisations are quite large, and there might be gaps between the finance team, the HR team, learning development team. So it's worth seeing if you're a levy paying employer if an account's actually already been set up for you. So that's one thing, bit of advice I'd say is ask around, check to see if an account has been set up before going through the process of setting up an account, because the majority of accounts from what we see have been set up, but that's very different to actually accessing the funding.
Just to come in there, Simon, in terms of when you talk about an account, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't have an account that you're not paying the levy. Presumably the levy funds are still being taken from the business. You just don't have a digital apprenticeship or the service account, I suppose, as it's called now.
Yeah, exactly. So the money's still being taken each month and paid to HMRC, but yeah, if you've not got an account, you're still paying the levy. If you've got an account, doesn't mean you're actually utilising it. It's only setting up an account and actually purchasing training is where you're kind of the next step in the process of kind of utilising what you're paying each month. So absolutely, you're right there, Sam.
Yeah, and that's all stuff that I suppose any good training provider should be able to guide you through as well if you do decide to use the apprenticeship service as well.
Yeah, so I think there are some employers who are quite capable of setting up their own accounts. Once you've set up your account, you can choose from a list of approved training providers which are approved by government. So you can literally manage the start to end process if you know what you're doing and you're confident within that. But most good training providers will support employers if they need to set up their account, show them how it works, help them with the onboarding process. So yeah, you can do it yourself, or majority of training providers are well versed, have been doing this for 3 years, and what will help employers sort of onboard and get started through that sort of process. Okay. And as it says on the slides, once you've agreed the training with your training provider, the money comes out on a monthly basis. So you negotiate the price. 80% of that is paid over the duration of the training, and 20% is held back on completing the endpoint assessments at the end. So once the commitment's made, the employer kind of clicks every month to say that they're receiving the training, and money goes out of their account. So you get kind of debits and credits, with money being taken out from HMRC, money getting clawed back if you're not spending it, and money going out to providers for providing the training, and money coming in from new payments each month. So it's a bit like a working ledger in terms of money in, money out, in terms of how the sort of system works.
Yeah. So quite importantly then, so I'm just on that, the payments that are made for the course are made on a monthly basis, aren't they? Whilst you're on the course, it's not, you know, if the funding is £7,000 and 20% is held back for endpoint assessment, the other 80% doesn't come out on day one. It's spread over, you know, 18 months, for instance, if it's an 18-month course.
Absolutely. So yeah, you agree a price, and the 80% for the training aspect is paid in monthly instalments, so over the duration. So yeah, you don't have to have the money accrued in your account to spend it per se. So it is paid over the planned duration, and as you say, apprenticeships last at least a year, in some cases a lot longer, maybe 18 months, 2 years, 3 years on some of the high level programs. So it is a monthly payment based on the training taking place at an individual apprentice level.
Yeah. So then, kind of moving on, then what happens if a company doesn't use their apprenticeship funds then?
So I kind of touched on earlier, how the system works is that employers have got 24 months before the deposited funds are sunsetted and get returned to government. And like I said, the system works on a first in, first out basis. So if you've not spent any money and you've got a levy pot sat there, you would have lost a year's worth of payments, because we're 3 years in now. But if you were started to pay for training, if you bought some training today, the money in your account that's been in the longest is the bit that goes towards the training. So it's kind of works on a sort of sunsetted basis. I mean, initially the levy was quite slow to be adopted in the first couple of years. Around 400 million per year for the first couple of years was getting returned back to government and treasury, because employers were slow to utilising it. But we're starting to see more of an uptake now as employers get to grips with how the system works. You know, we've got a fantastic range of apprenticeship standards available now, from sort of level 2 GCSE level all the way up to level 7 sort of MBA masters level. So it's certainly employers, after a bit of a slow start, are getting to grips with it. But if you don't use it, it gets recycled back into the system, and other employers, competitors could use it to fund their co-investment, or the government can spend it on different things. So it's the whole system really works on the basis that employers won't utilise all of it. But if you're paying it, the advice is to try and maximise what you pay in across a range of the sort of 500 apprenticeships that you can access these days. So like I say, some employers write it off as a tax, you know, but you know, apprenticeships aren't just at level 2, level 3. We've got higher level apprenticeships, degree level apprenticeships. So you know, the view is there's almost an apprenticeship for everything. Back office, obviously you'll talk about some of the programs that you offer, but you know, a wide range of apprenticeships for different job roles, different levels of individuals, kind of entry-level roles, intermediate roles, senior manager roles. So yeah, it's certainly worth looking at what's available, and utilising what you're paying, else that money goes gets lost, which is not great for anybody.
No, and again, just to summarise, so companies that have been paying into the levy for the last 3 years then would effectively, over the last 12 months, if they've completely ignored the levy and decided not to use it, will have now lost 12 months worth of funds that they've paid in, and then you know, that will just continue to happen unless it's used. Yeah,
so that money just disappears. So if you're paying £1 million a year into the levy, you know, you would have paid in 3 million so far, and you would have lost £1 million from that first year, and you'll be obviously it will just keep chipping away, and you'll as time goes by, more money goes in, more money goes out, but yeah, it just kind of sits there and then gets kind of clawed back. So like I say, we're starting to see more employers utilising it after what was a bit of a slow start, sort of 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's not really a surprise when I suppose companies might be looking now at, you know, this money leaving that account and thinking that they could have used that for training existing or new staff, I suppose.
Yeah, well, like I say, apprenticeships can be used for anyone. It's not necessarily new recruits. It can be for existing staff, upskilling, reskilling them. The majority of apprenticeships are for apprentices over the age of 25. So, a few misconceptions around apprenticeships. There's sort of trowel construction programs for young people. They haven't been programs like that for just like that for many years. The last few years we've seen a ramp up on new sectors, new levels, new standards. So that there should be a program almost for any sort of job role these days, and certainly sort of very sort of technical level programs as well. So definitely worth having a look if you've there's still got the stigma around what an apprenticeship is, but that has changed significantly over the last sort of 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we come across when speaking with employers. The natural assumption is that anyone who's going to be doing an apprenticeship is someone who's aged between 16 and 18 and joining a new business in their first role. But in reality, apprenticeships cover pretty much everyone from the ground upwards, really. Like you mentioned, Simon, up to level sort of 7 or up to level apprenticeships, which are the same as sort of master's degree. You can see that that they are catering to every level, really.
Yeah, so it's an employer-led system. So what do employers want? In different sectors, they'll have different entry routes, whether it's at sort of level 2 GCSE level, or in the more technical routes, it might be at level 6 sort of degree level. So yeah, the whole system has been retransformed over the last 3 to 5 years, but we still see quite a few employers who don't understand the breadth of what apprenticeships cover and who can do those, and what are the implications. If you're an existing member of staff, there's no impact on your sort of salary. You don't go back to the minimum wage. You can carry on your current salary. It's about reskilling and upskilling. So yeah, certainly that's a kind of myth that we see a lot and have seen a lot over the last couple of years.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that. I think we've covered that quite well. I think we do have some links later on in the presentation which you can follow to get more information on the Apprenticeship Levy from government and from the Institute for Apprenticeships as well. But for now, I think we should now maybe talk about what courses are actually available for accounts payable and procure to pay professionals, and this is where ACAPP kind of come through, really, is that we offer 4 different levels of courses which are embedded within apprenticeship standards. And what I mean by that is that we Sorry, Simon, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, just cut out there. We've taken a number of apprenticeship standards and embedded our courses within them to make them fundable through the Apprenticeship Levy. So the courses that we actually offer start from an entry-level course, which is the Accounts Payable Specialist course, through to management, and then our Accounts Payable Practitioner course, which is a combination of the 2 previous courses together. And then we also offer a purchase to pay advanced practitioner course, which covers everything from purchase through to payment, so relevant for AP and procurement, really. And those courses range in levels. So we'll just take a quick look in a bit more detail at each sort of level that's available. So the level 2 accounts payable specialist role apprenticeship, it's embedded within an apprenticeship standard called the Customer Service Practitioner standard. And the reason that we've chosen that apprenticeship standard is because that standard talks a lot about, obviously, customer service and the role of an accounts payable professional. It involves a lot of dealing with suppliers, which requires a lot of customer service skills. So that's the reason why we've chosen that standard, and then we've molded it to fit the role or fit the role of an accounts payable professional. The course itself is a 12 to 18 month course. It's suitable for really anyone from entry level through to an experienced accounts payable professional. It doesn't cover anything management. It's very much about process and best practices. So it's suitable for an accounts payable clerk through to sort of team leader. The funding aspect that attracts from the government or through the levy is £3,500. So that covers the entire course. There are no additional fees to that. It includes all the training that's provided by our partner training provider, Black Country Training Group, or further training. In terms of the course topics on that course, it's all about, as I mentioned, best practices and accounting and accounts payable. So it's all about dealing with setting up suppliers, invoice best practices, different technology. Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just dropped out of that.
So just dropped out there. So in terms of this management course, I'm not sure if you heard, but I mentioned that it's been mapped to 3 different apprenticeship standards, and the business administrator, team leader, supervisor, and departmental manager apprenticeships. Course duration 15 to 24 months. It's suitable for accounts payable professionals who are looking to enter management or line management, or are either or maybe experienced accounts payable managers or finance managers. The funding aspect for that course is £1,500 to £7,000. It depends what apprenticeship standard that you choose. For instance, the business administrator standard is funded at a lower rate than the level 5 departmental manager apprenticeship standard. Key course topics there. The course very much covers management and leadership styles and theories, motivation and motivators, different KPIs that can be embedded within accounts payable teams, presentations, how to present, and then also managing complaints and dealing with unhappy suppliers, and embedded different processes for your team to deal with that as well effectively. Further to that, we then also offer our level 3 or level 5 advanced P2P practitioner course as well. So that course again has been mapped to the team leader or departmental manager apprenticeship standards. Again, 15 to 24 months, suitable for accounts payable, procure to pay, or procurement professionals. So it's a broader course that covers not just accounts payable, but also procurement and how to bring the 2 departments together, and how to re-engineer processes to streamline them between the 2 departments, etc. So the funding on that one is again £4,500 to £7,000, again through the Apprenticeship Levy or the Co-Investment Fund. The main topics within that course, again, there's a large focus on management and leadership styles and theories, but then we look at what is procure to pay or what is purchase to pay,
when is a P2P environment suitable, and how to create and why create a P2P environment. Then we look at P2P technology solutions, so different Hi Simon, can you hear me again?
Yep, carry on.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So in terms of benefits of apprenticeships, they offer an opportunity to develop your skills and knowledge. You can become, you'll be recognised as committed to improving and certifying your practice. You gain a nationally recognised qualification, particularly from enrolling in these apprenticeships with ACAPP. You gain the only AP and P2P focused apprenticeship program qualification in the UK. And then it also gives you the opportunity to join a global community. So we have around 20,000 members globally. So you have the opportunity to join that membership, to access our events, to access training webinars, etc., and also communicate with other professionals in the industry as well. So next steps, if you are considering looking at accounts payable, procure to pay apprenticeship through ACAPP, or are considering this for your team, the next steps would be engage with your team, find out who's interested, let them know a bit about the options. Also engage with HR and learning and development business partners, or find out who it is in the business that actually controls the apprenticeship levy, and maybe have a conversation with them about the levy, about the fact that you found a course that can be funded through the levy, and let them know that you're considering that. Providing that there are no issues there with the business, then we would look to arrange a meeting or a conference call with someone from ACAPP, or one of our delivery partners, Black Country Training Group, or Further Training, to answer any questions that you might have. There might be a number of questions that we haven't answered today that you might have about the actual training and the delivery, etc. And then further to that, if you have identified individuals or yourself who would like to actually enrol, and the next step would be a member of the training company, Black Country Training Group, would attend your work site, complete an application form with you, get you signed up to the apprenticeship officially, and then the next step from there would be your assigned tutor making a first visit with you and getting you started on the apprenticeship. So they're in broad brush terms, the next steps really. So at this stage, if there are any questions that anyone has, I advise you to use the chat on the right hand side. Alternatively, you can use the contact details that are just there on the presentation, and either email myself or Simon afterwards, and we'd be happy to help. Simon, was there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive in terms of how the system works and the program we offer. You obviously talked about the benefits of apprenticeship, and it's a significant structured program of learning. If you're paying a levy, it's you've got the ability for it to be sort of fully funded, investing in your staff, improving productivity. If you're not a levy paying employer, there's a 95% government subsidy, which is a sort of very generous contribution towards the what is a significant program. Apprenticeships proved to have a good return on investment, help retain staff, boost productivity. So all those kind of key things. Obviously, we've got a few challenges at the moment around sort of COVID-19, and that's kind of impacting employers' decisions. But hopefully, that's kind of given people a whistle-stop tour of how the system works, some of the products that might be available, and some sort of resources that people can look at or get in touch if they've got further sort of questions or queries about how the funding or how the product work that are currently available.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that was helpful for everyone that's joined us today. Simon, thank you for taking part. As ever, your insights have been very, very interesting and insightful. So if there are any questions from anyone, feel free to get in touch with either myself or Simon using the details on the screen there. You will receive a copy of the presentation today via email as well. So all the details will be in there. And yeah, hope everyone has a good day, and we'll leave it there.
Great, thanks Sam, thanks everyone.
Thanks Simon, thanks everyone.